This happened not too long after I moved to England. Back then, and still to this day, my country's living conditions weren't great, with everything getting worse every year, low salaries and high cost of living, so I decided I had enough. Not too long before that, my best friend had moved to England with her boyfriend and her dog. They lived in a house with a spare room, so we planned it out, and I moved to their house and shared the rent while I tried to find a job in my own place. We didn't last too long in that house though, and 2 weeks after I moved in, we moved into a different house. The house itself was supposed to be better, but the neighborhood it was in, well, let's just say it had a lot to improve on. This was in an apartment building, in a nice enough close, but the areas just outside our small alley were dodgy to say the least. The problem though was that my friends had the dog. Most nights they would get into huge fights about who was the most tired from work, who worked the hardest, who did the most at home, and the other nonsense I didn't have the patience for. So I would end up offering to take the dog for his walk, just so I didn't have to listen to them anymore. It would usually go pretty well, I think, especially because this was around the pandemic time, so there were a lot less people on the street. One night though was different. When I offered to take the dog and walked out of the house with him, I had this strange feeling going on. Like that night I shouldn't have offered to go and should have just stayed home. Then again, maybe it's best it was me and not my friend. I'm a male, 25 going on 26 back then, well built and broad-shouldered, and could easily take a fight, even though I'm not a very tall guy, so would probably present a bigger threat than my friend. I went down the stairs, walked out of the building with a trash bag in hand, dumped the bag and went on my way to the closed entrance. As always, when I got to the main road, because I like to keep the walks different and fresh for the dog, I looked both ways to decide which way to go. That's when, to my left, I noticed this guy jogging in my direction. What troubled me, though, was that he was jogging in completely normal, day-to-day clothes, not dressed to go out for a run at all. Thinking I didn't want to be judging people and didn't want to be feeling uneasy, I decided to just walk the other way and try to ignore the guy running my way. If it was the case, I would cross the road and see what happened. I wasn't the only one feeling uncomfortable, though, as the dog was refusing to just go about our way. He was an intense dog, with a massive focus when it came to trouble, and was a mix between a bully and a Portuguese hunting dog breed. So he was medium-sized, muscular, and had this habit of staring people down in a way that would make everyone uncomfortable. And that's just what he did then. I turned to my right, started walking down the street, having to pull the dog along every 5 seconds because he wouldn't stop turning back and observing the guy, who was still around 30 seconds jogging away from us. Of course I kept my eye on the guy as well, taking advantage of having to pull the dog along to keep measuring how far the guy was from us. And when he was starting to get too close for comfort, I crossed the street. If he was just running past, he would be on his way. If there was something else happening, he would cross the street as well. And of course, that's exactly what he did. When I started crossing the street, the guy crossed it behind me, and then I decided to actually stop and let the dog stare the guy down to see what would come out of this. It was like I had messed everything up for him. He looked surprised, stopped running, and walked past us with both me and the dog eyeing him. He then lifted his hands like he was surrendering and said,
"Hey bro, all good? All good?"
to which I just replied, "All good, you?"
"Yeah, boss, yeah."
he said. Then he walked ahead of us, finished crossing the road, and I went back to the same side of the road I was on to begin with and thought that would be it. No trouble, just a slight misunderstanding. That's when the guy stopped, turned around, saw I was not on his side of the street anymore, and did the weirdest shit. He took 2 steps back up the road and hid behind a tree, like he was hiding from someone else that was ahead on the street. This made me even more uncomfortable, and I was now having to control my shaking legs, adrenaline, and increasing heartbeat, and not let any signs give my discomfort away. I ignored it, kept walking ahead, walked past the guy on the opposite side of the road, looked him in the eye again to warn him without having to say anything, and kept walking. 10 more steps was all it took. With this weird guy behind me, I heard something shuffle ahead in the street. Initially, I thought this could be a fox, but stopped when I decided the shuffling sounded like it was coming from something way bigger than a fox or a dog. Another person, maybe? Then I saw it. There was someone else hiding behind one of the upcoming's house's trash can, waiting for me to get there. I could see a part of their back showing up from one of the sides. I don't know if me and the dog could have taken them both on or not, but I decided then I wouldn't risk it for me, let alone risk the dog's life. I turned around and started walking up the street again. Walked past the first guy, who was still huddled behind the same tree, nodded at him, said goodnight, and left. The surprise in his face confirmed everything to me. They were not expecting me to understand what was going on, were not expecting me to turn around and simply walk away, and the first guy was not expecting me to still interact with him at all. For the night, I decided to just let the dog do his business in the little grass area behind our building, and that was it. Considering that this was a very dangerous and high crime neighborhood which keeps getting worse, and a month later my boss's son and his friends were mugged at knife point with a machete just up the road from where this happened, I think I actually made the right choice that night.